Gollum? Gollum!
Did you call me?
Ah, found him. Well, that was a short film. Greetings, you absolute peasants! 'Tis I, Lord Brokeback Catamite McSodomy Arshenlick Billingshurst the Ninth. Feel it, 'cause you sure can't conceal it. And today I am bringing to your attention The Hunt for Gollum. The Hunt for Gollum, or as it's now called since Warner Brothers had it taken down in May after filing a copyright claim when announcing their project of the same name, The Hunt for Gollum Fan Film 2009. For the moment at least, and until Hollywood can regain any sort of trust with me, I'm calling this film the real one. Though the scripting is the production's own creation, the events in The Hunt for Gollum are canon, and are outlined in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, and even directly referenced or otherwise alluded to in the novels. Filmed in 2009, 6 years after the release of The Return of the King, this fan film takes place in the interbook period set between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. You know, the books. The ones where Frodo is actually 50 instead of just some 18-year-old pup. Positioned between the timelines of the novels, The Hunt for Gollum follows the journeys of Aragorn Elessar, where, at Gandalf's behest, he attempts to hunt down and capture the wretched creature Gollum. I suppose that bit's not really much of a surprise, is it? After a short introduction, the tale begins on familiar ground, the prancing pony at Bree. Incidentally, this is one of my favourite parts of The Lord of the Rings, if nothing else because what could remind you more of quaint rural England than a good solid piss-up with wall-to-wall vomiting? The scene is held between Gandalf and Aragorn as they discuss what is to be done on the issue of Gollum. They need the creature to determine how he came to have possession of the One Ring of Power, but also further to shut him up about blathering to the enemy. It's interesting watching a fan-made project with different faces incarnating the roles of characters so beloved. Of course, this is hardly the first time different actors have played the same part, but there is something so iconic, so cultural in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings, that it initially almost feels blasphemous. Adrian Webster is more gaunt and smaller of stature than Viggo Mortensen, but his pallid eyes, soft voice and scraggly demeanour soon serve to win you over. After all, the Aragorn of the book certainly was slender with a roguish air to him, was he not? Though production values are obviously lower than Peter Jackson's versions, reportedly it cost them less than £3,000, there's real love here and it shines through right from the beginning. As I watched, I found myself right back there with Gandalf and Aragorn at the Inn of the Prancing Pony. I ask you, how many Hollywood shows of late have you watched that have done that kind of thing for you? And so, taking the burden upon himself, Aragorn sets off on the trail of Gollum. There's a real attention to lore in this story, and though it might add in its own characters and bend snippets here and there, none of them break the greater ideal it holds up to. Indeed, at times it makes several efforts to hint at the greater mythology of the world beyond. The music is in keeping with the Peter Jackson films, and they have made a lot of effort to align the costumes, which look surprisingly decent, and other aspects of the project to those of the trilogy. They've even used the same font on the opening, conjuring up images of the misty mountains, and harkening back to Galadriel's ageless yet age-old voice, beckoning you into the world of Middle-earth and the adventures within. And that's the real Galadriel, by the way. Not the pretend one.
There is a tempest in me.
As Aragorn travels the beautiful lands of Middle-earth, or Hampstead Heath and Wales, we glimpse snippets of the great world beyond. This is one of the areas where the quality of filming is noticeably low, but like a stage play, it only takes a little suspension of disbelief to maintain your enjoyment of the theatre. The CGI ranges from passable to poor, but is not overused and thusly forgivable. That said, there are definitely one or two scenes where they go above and beyond with the visuals, and when they do it really pays off. The titular Gollum too is kept wisely elusive, a good thing in and of itself. I mean, how can you contend with Andy Serkis's envisioning? And though I suspect it was a decision made both from budgetary concerns and an understanding that any significant integration of the character will probably be a letdown, Gollum himself spends a good chunk of the film obscured within a sack on Aragorn's back. Though you don't really believe he's in there, what Aragorn carries is both too light and shaped wrongly. We're back to that suspension of disbelief thing again. Just a mild one, and it's never a bad thing to have when watching a project like this. You may definitely have to use it once or twice. Gareth Brow voices the miserable little wretch well enough, keeping generally in line with Circus's Gollum, though I feel some of the audio settings are off. His voice always seems to have the wrong atmospherics and spatial timbers around him, never quite seeming to come from the character itself. When Aragorn stumbles in a chance meeting upon another ranger, Arethyr, the two take a moment to shelter together and trade stories. Now, I think in large part because of the lower image resolution, the first few shots of Arethyr, he appears to have a huge clump of muck or blood or something on his face. I'm not joking when I thought he'd applied his beard wrong in makeup and plastered it up his cheek, and it was only on subsequent re-watching I realised it was in fact shadow cast on his face from a mass of scar tissues there. The scripting in The Hunt for Gollum is perfectly adequate. Oh, it's not Tolkien exactly, but it's a damned good attempt at it. And it's certainly leagues ahead of other projects, such as, you know.
Do you know why a ship floats and a stone cannot?
After all you have endured, it is only natural to feel conflicted.
Conflicted?
Conflicted?
Going his separate way from his fellow ranger, it is not too long before Aragorn has encounters with a variety of other beings, friend and foe alike. Done especially well are the orcs, and I cannot emphasise this enough. Within the budgetary constraints of the film, they are done really well. Are they as good as Peter Jackson's orcs? No, but they're not that far off, not really. And this is the type of thing most shows of this ilk gets really wrong. There's a scene where two orcs walk through the forest arguing with one another, which reminded me greatly, and I think not coincidentally, of the unnamed tracker and the soldier orc quarrelling early on in the 6th and final book of The Lord of the Rings. It's a pleasure to watch. Later on, there's a few brief shots of a male elf who looks about as decent as anything in the big blockbuster version, though the actress who plays Lady Arwen is perhaps slightly less believable to me. I don't know, she just looks Welsh. She's not, I looked her up, but she really does look Welsh. I know. During Aragorn's travels, his blade is inevitably drawn. A full blade, I might add. Fight scenes in these kind of projects will normally show up the more novice production, but the director keeps the shots tight and short to avoid watching those awkward moments where the stuntmen are standing around waiting for their cues. And the action is surprisingly passable. They're no Chow Yun Fat, but it avoids all the usual cringe you see in this kind of stuff. Towards the end of the film, it's the night shots which let the Hunt for Gollum down the most. Scenes set in darkness are notoriously difficult to get right without very specific and proper lighting, and unfortunately Hunt falls into this pitfall. At several moments the picture is too dark to definitively discern what is going on. When I watched this on a large screen, the whole thing became very pixelated. I was right back in 2004 again. All in all, I'm impressed with The Hunt for Gollum, the fan film 2009. For what it is, it's a very pleasant 35-minute splash of fantastical escapism. It's far from perfect, but that doesn't matter, because the film has been crafted with love for the world it depicts. It has reverence for the culture given to us by Professor Tolkien, and not reverence for the culture of SoCal, as seems to be the habit in these things these days. So what are you waiting for? If you haven't seen it, or even if you have, go out and give The Hunt for Gollum a watch. The proper one, that is. You may just like it. Oh, and no, there's still no Tom Bombadil in it, and some people are very happy about that.